Youyou, the daughter of Jiangmen Tiger, discovered an even more tragic fact after her family was destroyed. Her fiancé and best friend had gotten along. In a desperate situation, she accidentally obtained a hidden cultivation system, which restored her memories before crossing the time. She prepared to take her brother to the cultivation world. System. It can only be used as scrap wood. Youyou, the 2 generations learning God. Give me time, it's a bit difficult. In the eyes of outsiders, Fang Mianzhi is a righteous leader with explosive combat power, a gentle voice that makes people feel like they are bathed in spring breeze, and treats people with gentleness and courtesy. In Youyou's eyes, Fang Mianzhi was both righteous and evil, with unpredictable weather. He was ruthless in his actions, ruthless towards others, and even more ruthless towards himself. In order to cultivate himself, he made himself neither human nor ghost. Watching Fang Mianzhi being abandoned by everyone, he went deep into the enemy camp alone, his back lonely. Youyou sighed and said, "Forget it, I'll be with you." In the eyes of outsiders, Youyou is a useless senior sister who has not made any progress at the beginner level, dull, rigid, and stubborn. Youyou in Fang Mianzhi's eyes is his Tao heart, his redemption, and the only person he wants to protect. "You are sick, I have medicine," and the 2 cultivation ceilings are rushing in both directions. Keywords of the novel. Sorry, the female supporting character was taken to repair without a pop-up window. Sorry, the female supporting character was taken to repair. Download the full text. Sorry, the female supporting character was taken to repair. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Wedge in difficulty, daughter of gold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wedge in difficulty, daughter of gold with a heavy heart. Youyou still arrived at the Lu mansion, but in fact, she was a bit at a dead end. At this time, it was winter, but Youyou was wearing a single-layer plain clothes that didn't match the season, with white flowers on her head. The baby's chubby face was a bit thin, and the big apricot's lips were tightly pursed under her eyes. Her face was a bit pale, and her back was straight, like a wax plum in the winter snow. Her beautiful appearance caught the attention of many people along the way. My fiancé Lu Zhe said she looks very small. Although she comes from a family of generals, she has an extremely mismatched baby face with snow-white skin that cannot be tanned even in the sun. Although she has had a slim figure in recent years, she looks harmless like a white rabbit and doesn't make people think she's a martial arts practitioner from a young age. Lu Zhe often says that she is already 5 years older than her, and when we walk together, it looks like the age difference is even greater. She said it was just an old cow eating tender grass, and the 2 of them immediately laughed together. Thinking of the past, Youyou still felt a bit comforted in her heart. Fortunately, even if she was stepped on in the mud, she still had her brother Lu. A month ago, news came that all the leaders of her family had died in battle on the front line, including his parents, eldest uncle, second uncle, third uncle, and fourth uncle. Youyou is heartbroken. Although his parents rarely accompany his siblings in the capital, they show little love and care for them. His family has a pure family tradition, with a loving mother and a filial son, and his happiness is harmonious. Youyou won't say much on her lips. But every time they returned home from the border, her father laughed heartily and embraced her into a broad chest. Her mother hugged her and leaned against her warm arms, all of which were what the little one had hoped for day and night. The entire main branch is left with her and her younger brother in the capital era. In addition to the pain, after burying them, she had not yet recovered from her sad emotions. However, she did not expect that the usually well-behaved branch tribes would suddenly attack their siblings at this moment, hoping to swallow the property of the Ji family. Youyou was born into a noble family and has been stationed at the border for generations, working hard and achieving great success. In my father's generation, he was extremely outstanding, particularly skilled in arranging troops and formations. The emperor highly valued him and appointed his father Ji Shui as the mighty general of Yaobang state. As the first marshal of Yaobang kingdom, his father Ji Shui was tall and powerful, holding a tiger talisman, and had unparalleled glory. The main clan of the Ji family has accumulated rich family wealth through passion and sacrifice. The main clan eats meat, and the branch can also get a share of the pie. However, seeing such an opportunity now, they were anxious and their greedy tails were completely exposed. I don't want to talk about family anymore. A group of tall and sturdy men came straight to the door and drove Youyou and his siblings out of the Ji mansion. Without even giving them time to tidy up, they hurriedly occupied the magpie's nest. Although Youyou has been practicing martial arts since he was young, he is still weak and has not stood up to them in judging the situation. At present, she has been staying at the inn with her younger brother, Yuan, for almost half a month. Due to being rushed out, she didn't even bring any luggage or expenses. I came here this time to find my fiancé Lu Zhe and see if I could meet the Holy One directly. I asked him to uphold justice, take back everything that belongs to me, and live a good life with my younger brother. Walking to a familiar place and gazing at the towering gate, the words, Ji Fu, seemed a bit dazzling in the sunlight, but Youyou hesitated a bit. It has been a month since the incident happened, but why did Brother Lu never contact her? I have a bad feeling in my heart. But I thought to myself, no, Brother Lu may have been delayed by something. Fiancé Lu Zhe was chosen by Youyou himself, 5 years older than her. His father, Lu Shaoyan, was the Minister of Rights, and Lu Shaoyan had 5 sons. Lu Zhe was his eldest son, and the other 4 sons were all born to his stepmother. The two met at the Ji mansion when they were young. At that time, Lu Zhe's father was only a 5th-grade official, and Lu Zhe had just lost his mother. The young boy is very arrogant and solitary. The first time I followed my father to the capital to report my work, I was beaten to death by my fellow young masters of the same age. Youyou saw Lu Zhe's first face, which was a very delicate young master dressed in white clothes with a golden crown on his head. But he sat by the lake and choked, crying softly as if he didn't want to be heard. While washing the blood off his face, he then began to rub the white clothes stained with blood. Later, Lu Zhe went to the Ji mansion to practice martial arts, and their relationship naturally developed through their interactions, becoming childhood sweethearts. Lu Zhe's arrogant personality is gradually changing, becoming gentle and steady. He usually cares about the cold and warm, and is very considerate of Youyou. She remembers one time when she had an emergency and was on the brink of death. My parents are still at the border and cannot be reached. Lu Zhe was so anxious that he wandered around and went several hundred miles away from home to find medicine for her. During the journey, several horses were changed and kept up until finally the medicine was brought back. Arrived in the middle of the night, unable to enter Youyou's boudoir due to gender differences. After giving the medicine to the maid at the door, Lu Zhe was so tired that he could only rest by the wall of her small courtyard. It wasn't until she heard that her fever had subsided and everything was fine that she stumbled back to her mansion to rest, and it turned out that she hadn't closed her eyes for several nights. Youyou is of utmost importance to this relationship, as she believes that Lu Zhe treats her sincerely. At that time, Youyou, as the daughter of the discipline, was naturally the object of many families seeking marriage. But he alone selected the unknown Lu Zhe from a large number of people. At that time, Lu Zhe was just a young master who had lost his mother for only a few years. Although he had an outstanding appearance, he had no strengths. Although they have a family business, they naturally cannot compare to the great family business of Ji Fu. The main mother is not yet her biological mother. Father Ji was used to the cool demeanor of the border man and was somewhat dissatisfied with betrothing his daughter to this thin and frail young man. Seeing Youyou so determined, he reluctantly agreed. The fact proves that Lu Zhe himself is a rough jade, but no one has been able to appreciate it before. After getting engaged to Youyou, Lu Zhe gradually showed his excellence. As the new flower scout of this year, his handsome appearance has made him a sought-after member of the big family in the capital city. Many families are flocking to inquire about it, intentionally or unintentionally. If it weren't for getting engaged to Ji Fu long ago, let everyone rest their spirits. It is also easy to find a prestigious and prosperous clan based on his conditions. Huang Bo, let me look for Lu Zhe. Youyou quickly approached the familiar gatekeeper and said. Miss Ji, my eldest son has gone out and will not be here. Huang Bo's eyes were evasive. On weekdays, he would have let her go into the mansion to search for her on her own. Brother Lu said that she had to enter anyway, and his home was hers. She could come and adapt in advance. When will he come back? I'll wait a moment, Youyou could only say so. I'm not sure, even the little one, Huang Bo stuttered. While Youyou was talking to Huang Bo, he noticed a servant probing his head and entering to report the news. Although Youyou is young, his appearance is already very outstanding. Even wearing plain clothes, she still couldn't hide her slender legs, beautiful figure, and slender neck, which had long attracted the attention of a group of passers-by. There were also some people gathered around the door, watching as the Lu mansion closed its doors and began to discuss. Especially some sharp-eyed people have already recognized this woman wearing plain chiffon as the talented woman among the previously famous women in the world, the daughter of a powerful general, Youyou. When Youyou went to school, he wrote several poems and characters, but for some reason, he was extremely popular. Especially after reading it, Du Lao, the director of the Calligraphy and Painting Academy, which is full of peach and plum blossoms, praised it. This son is talented. Afterwards, it was widely praised and even imitated by students. Although she deliberately faded out of sight later on, she still accumulated some niche popularity among students. Oh, isn't this Miss Tianjin Youyou? Before seeing the person, a sharp female voice could be heard. I saw an older maid dressed in pink and dressed as a servant walking out of the door. Youyou had seen her and seemed to be the eldest maid next to Lu Zhe's stepmother. Our young master said that you are no longer the miss of the Ji mansion, how can you be worthy of him? He really said that. Youyou didn't believe it at all, she understood his character. Of course, he is discussing marriage with the daughter of the Prime Minister. He said, this money will be given to you as a charity, just as if it were a past relationship. Don't come back in the future. The maid said arrogantly, conveying the master's message. After speaking, he didn't come over and hand it to her, but threw the money bag onto her body. An extremely contemptuous attitude, even a maid could treat her like this. The previous respectful attitude has created a great contrast with the present. However, Youyou didn't have time to investigate, she was just stunned by the words in her words. The daughter of the Prime Minister. Sister Gu. How could it be? Youyou seemed to be shocked by the news on the spot, as if he had lost his ability to think. It's Miss Gu Ruoshi, the maid replied word by word, as if afraid she wouldn't hear clearly. No, this must not be true. I want to find Lu Zhe. Where is Lu Zhe? I want him to say it face to face. Youyou lifted his step and walked towards the mansion. She is already very familiar with every blade of grass and every tree here. After all, the two have been engaged for 5 years and have already met their parents. In fact, Brother Lu's stepmother has always disliked him, and Youyou knows it in her heart, but she doesn't understand the reason. But upon hearing the maid's answer, Youyou still felt a bit flustered, not distinguishing between reality and falsehood. She didn't believe it. Actually, for the majority of the time, Youyou is very rational. Lu Zhe often says that he cannot feel her emotions or feel her liking. Emotionally speaking, Youyou is a very introverted person, and all her emotions are hidden in her heart, very deep and deep. However, all the emotions were reflected in actual actions. Youyou naively thought that the two of them knew and cherished each other, so there was no need to say so much. In the old days, Lu Zhe's face often had some minor injuries, and Youyou guessed that he must have fought with someone again. Someone secretly inquired and warned, then pretended to be completely unaware, not wanting to undermine Lu Zhe's confidence. The name Gu Ruoshi is even more familiar to Youyou. There is no other reason, she has been Youyou's good friend and best friend from childhood to adulthood, and it can be said that Youyou trusts her without reservation. There are some things that Lu Zhe may not know, but she can tell Gu Ruoshi. She fully understands Youyou's emotions towards Lu Zhe. Youyou is relatively introverted, but Gu Ruoshi is a very outgoing person. The two of them, who complement each other's personalities, are well-known close friends and their girlfriends. Now tell Youyou that her fiancé and best friend are getting engaged, and it may not be true even if the sky falls. Rationally, like Youyou, she only wanted to grasp their collars and ask clearly. Youyou. The familiar female voice came from behind, which used to be the laughter of whispering to her and the joyful sound of playing with her, but now it would be so unfamiliar. Youyou turned around and saw that Gu Ruoshi was still dressed in pink and had a gorgeous makeup. Unlike before, she is now not as friendly to her as before, but with a contemptuous attitude. Her chin was raised high, and her eyes were haughty. At this moment, she was standing beside Lu Zhe in a victorious manner, looking at her from above. Youyou, Lu Zhe is ready to resign, Youyou heard her best friend say. Intentionally lifting his hand, he took an oath and wrapped it around Lu Zhe's arm. Lu Zhe remained silent, his brows furrowed. He is still wearing his usual white clothes, with a golden hair crown, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, and a tall figure. But her gaze was concealed, unable to see the usual gentle indulgence towards her. Watching my fiancé and my best friend stand together, this scene is very impactful. They are like a pair of beautiful people, so perfectly matched. Youyou felt inferior for the first time. Is she really not worthy? Is it true that all emotions are built on corresponding conditions? Despite being betrayed twice, even as strong as Youyou, he has now lost his ability to speak. Silent and silent. It's like meeting them for the first time, but I don't want to reminisce about them. In the past, were they all fake? Lu Zhe remained silent all along. Youyou raised her head and stared fixedly at her fiancé, whom she had known for 10 years and had been engaged to for 5 years. I hope to see the familiar tenderness again and tell her it's just a joke. However, there is nothing. Lu Zhe, I want you to say it yourself. It's what you see. Lu Zhe seemed a bit hesitant to look directly at her, always looking elsewhere. Brother Lu has been wanting to divorce you for a long time. Before your father's defeat, he had already fallen in love with me. We have been in private contact for a long time, so it's not easy to hurt you. It's good to talk about it now. After using it for several hours, it seemed like she was a stumbling block for both of them, and the woman was arrogant and couldn't stop the car. At this moment, Gu Ruoshi's true personality is fully revealed. It turns out that she is such a person. Not the enthusiastic and generous Gu sister in Youyou's memory. Everything turned out to be fake. If you don't have the money to stay at the inn, take this money and you won't be coming to find my brother Lu, he said coaxingly. Youyou listened to a sneer as she kept saying to Gu Ruoshi, how is my brother Lu? As she spoke, she didn't realize that the woman she regarded as her best friend had long coveted her fiancé, but she was completely unaware of it. Now, the joke has turned out to be her brother Lu. Looking at her ex-fiancé again, she looked hesitant. Where is it still her Lu Zhe? Her favorite Lu Zhe is elegant and dignified. He is a man who grows up in adversity but perseveres, a good man who runs hundreds of miles to find medicine for him, but not a turtle grandson with evasive eyes that dare not even look at her. Well, it's not sweet to try to twist things around. There's no need to offend this dog couple now, but she will recalculate this account and she will definitely blow their heads when the time comes. Youyou originally wanted to turn around and leave, throwing the money in their faces, seeking pleasure. But think about my younger brother. She took a deep breath and looked at the once most familiar couple in front of her, now the one who had sent her to hell. Suppressing tears, okay, Lu Zhe, this is the buyout money for you and me. We will sever ties in the future. After speaking, Youyou stepped forward without anyone's guard, and a loud slap greeted Lu Zhe's face. Pop. Listen to the sound, the attack is definitely not light. The person practicing martial arts exhausted all their strength in their hands. Youyou really hates it, hates the deception and betrayal of the two, hates himself for not knowing people clearly, and hates himself for not letting go of his feelings for Lu Zhe until now. Lu Zhe's face suddenly swelled up, and he didn't seem to make any resistance, just being slapped to the side. Bold, Youyou. Someone is here. Guruashi was the first to react, and everyone exclaimed in surprise. Someone was about to draw their sword on the spot. However, Lu Zhe stopped the movements of the surrounding guards and allowed Youyou to leave. Youyou turned around and left, as the people around had already been cleared by the people of Lu Mansion. As soon as Youyou turned around, tears couldn't stop flowing down her face. The emotions of nearly 10 years really dissipated with that slap. The scenes in my mind seemed to flash like a drama book, some with Lu Zhe and some with Guruashi. Youyou cried silently all the way back. Pretending to be calm in front of the dog couple, in fact, Youyou is just a young and inexperienced young lady in her teens. Under the double betrayal of love and friendship, how can she not be sad? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Exile Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Exile Life, Shu. Youyou, who was struggling to look out on the cabinet door, turned around and saw her younger brother Yuan's dripping black eyes staring at her. She immediately placed her middle finger on her mouth. The newly awakened little Era immediately fell silent when he saw his sister's movements. It has been almost half a year since they escaped from the capital city. A half-year-old child dragged a 6-year-old child along, stumbling and encountering countless difficulties and dangers along the way. The two were forced to grow and rely on each other, cultivating an unparalleled understanding. At this moment, the two of them are hiding in a cabinet of an abandoned house, with a small space and a hint of uninhabited musty smell. Era stood up and looked at the surrounding environment. It was pitch black, with only a glimmer of light shining through. The Era with tiger heads and tiger brains was not afraid at all, and he followed his sister with peace of mind. Half a year ago, young Master Ji, who was still fighting against the heavens and the earth, was the little tyrant. Due to his mischievous nature, he often goes up trees to dig bird nests and uses slingshots to hit monkeys on the mountains. Within 3 miles, no grass grows. At this moment, she was obediently squatting in the cabinet. He is not afraid of anyone, even his deceased parents cannot control his temperament, but he is a sister-controlled person. After half a year of wandering, the fair and round little face has been weathered by wind and rain. Not like the life of luxury, and a group of servants in the past. Now it looks black and thin, and the clothes brought out from the Ji mansion have a bit short pants. At this moment, there is a hint of fragility and dependence in the eyes of the Era. Youyou was a little sad. He thought about going out and mending his body. Cautiously listening to the commotion outside, the shouting gradually weakened, and Youyou's expression softened slightly. Turning back, he whispered, "Xiaoyuaner, we are hiding in a cabinet now. There are many bad people outside, which is very dangerous. We will find a way to escape later." Youyou still patiently expressed himself in language that children could understand in this situation. "Listen to my sister." Yuanben's childish face gradually became more sensible after half a year of experience. Who would have thought that the two disheveled people hiding in the cabinet were Miss Youyou and Second Prince Yuan, who came from a family of generals and nobles. Before the news of the death of the senior members of the Ji family in the war came, Youyou and his younger brother were still living leisurely in the government office. Youyou is the eldest daughter of the mighty general, Ji Shui. Now, as soon as I reach my hairpin, I am experiencing a huge change in my family. Originally known as a talented woman of great wealth throughout the country, she suddenly became a homeless orphan. Wandering around with my younger brother, Era. Not only that, but also facing the double betrayal of fiancé A and best friend, this situation is not a tragic one. Talking to her about her lifelong fiancé A, who used to be as playful as a close friend in a single person's boudoir, he had already been secretly spending his time. Sad and lamentable. She only felt that everything in the past was like a dream, with the love of her parents, the tolerance of her fiancé A, and the love of her friends all leaving her. She always thought she was the darling of heaven, thinking that Lu Zhe was a good man worth entrusting for life, so she gave him all her sincerity without reservation. Unexpectedly, she got such a result. Such a situation is enough to crush an adult. But Youyou was different, with no way to seek help, after suffering such a blow. She just returned to the inn and locked herself inside for half a day. My eyes turned red when I opened the door again. He began to plan his brother's trip to Guizhou with great enthusiasm. Before leaving, her father gave her a jade pendant and asked her to take good care of it. If she needed anything, she would go to Guizhou to seek refuge with him. After that, she would lead her troops to the border. Youyou thought about his father's words and prepared to leave the capital of Bangyao state with his younger brother to go to the place his father had said before making plans. The next day, the two of them had already disguised themselves and boarded the carriage leaving the city. A lady from a wealthy family who has never traveled far is truly remarkable for her swift and decisive actions. Since she was a child, her father's close attendant Fubo has said that she is calm and doesn't look like a child. She doesn't cry or make a fuss when her parents are away for a few months. Every day before midnight, I don't get up to practice and study. The school inspection always comes first, and I don't have to worry about swords, sticks, or anything. Arrange one's work and life properly, even the father who rarely praises others on weekdays says. Tiger father has no dog daughter. Later on, she had a younger brother and tried her best to take care of him, so that her parents never had any worries. Youyou and his younger brother followed the established route all the way to Guizhou. During this period, the buyout money given by the Lu family had run out. In order to save expenses, she often dresses up as a man and helps people with odd jobs at the inn. Firstly, she can take care of her younger brother up close, and secondly, it is not easy for anyone to discover her identity. Although wandering, she supported her 6-year-old brother with her tender shoulders. Although the cabinet was small, the siblings snuggled together, adding a touch of warmth to this dangerous moment. "Brother, please put away the bamboo thorns," Youyou said with concern. "Put it away," Era obediently replied. Before setting off, Youyou picked up many small hidden weapons that he had previously thought about. The reason for doing this was just for the young lady in the boudoir to pass the time, but he didn't expect it to come in handy now. "When it gets dark next day, I'll carry you on my back and run outside the city. If you encounter someone wearing a mask, you must hide." Youyou continued to instruct his younger brother, seeing that it was still early. The siblings have now completed nearly 2/3 of the journey and unexpectedly encountered extreme danger in Fuzhou. "My younger brother has been uncomfortable with the environment these days, with a slight fever and has been half asleep and half awake." She felt uneasy and took her younger brother out to seek medical treatment. She went to the clinic and prescribed some medicine. "As soon as I left, I saw someone searching along the street for something." Youyou saw from a distance that the group of people were wearing exquisite facial masks and black slim-fitting robes, with complex patterns such as totems on them. They were holding a box as if searching for something. Passers-by were frantically fleeing, and there were still large patches of blood on the ground. With a mournful cry, one person fell to the ground, uncertain of life or death. The movement seemed not as fast as normal people. Even though she was born into a noble family, she had never seen such skills. The most frightening thing is that these people are in vain of their ethics, leaving no living people everywhere they go, and their methods are extremely efficient. And surprisingly, he can fly like a cultivator. My father told her that since ancient times, although cultivators and mortals on the Zhangzhou continent have lived on the same continent, there is a clear boundary between them, and they are not connected to each other. What's going on now? Due to the agility of martial arts practitioners and the experience of wandering with her younger brother for the past 6 months, she instinctively felt danger. As soon as they realized something was wrong, they immediately turned into a dilapidated house in an alley with their younger brother. The room is empty and seems to have been abandoned by the owner for a long time. Dust was everywhere, so she found a small cabinet in the kitchen and hid her younger brother inside. She then bent down and closed the cabinet door. There is a crack on the cabinet door that allows Youyou to see the situation outside. The Facebook search person seemed very impatient, and when they saw that the room was empty, they didn't even get in and take a closer look. They luckily hid in the cabinet to avoid waves of searching. Quietly planning, Youyou, who had been paying attention to the outside noise, heard a rustling sound coming from outside the door. He placed his index finger on his mouth and signaled his younger brother not to speak. Then I heard a kick at the door, and the sound of footsteps approached. Through the cracks in the wood, she saw only one facial makeup person without any accomplices. After this person came in, they started flipping through boxes and cabinets, and the atmosphere immediately became tense. The siblings held their breath at the same time, and Youyou gave Jiyuan a glance, asking him to hide it. Then she clenched the dagger she carried with her. This Mio was given to her by her father on her 12th birthday. I don't know what kind of craftsmanship was used, but the sound of the knife presented an ancient gray-green color, emitting bursts of cold light. The center of the handle is adorned with an emerald green jade stone. She said she could chop gold and jade, and cut iron like mud, so she should be careful not to harm herself. At that time, she loved it so much that she secretly gestured twice a day. The sound of footsteps gradually approached, and the person looked towards the door as if waiting for their companion. This is the moment. Taking advantage of his slight distraction, Youyou rushed out of the side cabinet with a nimble figure like a cheetah. She is already 15 years old, and her body is relatively tall among her peers, with a height of nearly 7 feet. Inheriting her father's physique and practicing martial arts to strengthen her body, she is different from the weak and uncontrollable ladies of ancient families, with very tight muscles. It is worth mentioning that she also has considerable expertise in martial arts. Without waiting for the facial mask man to react, Youyou stabbed his vital point with a dagger from behind. With a sound of a knife piercing into the flesh, it hit. Just as he was about to take advantage of his lack of defense and make another cut, the man with a facial makeup quickly turned around. Emotionless eyes stared at her through the holes in the mask, lacquered and lacquered. He didn't seem to feel any pain, and as blood gushed out of his chest, he lifted the box in his hand. Youyou's slightly relieved heart lifted again. She held the dagger in her hand, ready to fight against him at any time. But he was thinking in his heart, he couldn't find his younger brother, he must not come out. I saw him lightly tapping on the dark metal box with his fingers. The box emits a buzzing vibration sound. Then Youyou felt a wave of dizziness. What is this thing? It feels a bit sinister, and Youyou feels that all her internal organs are about to be pulled out. Ding dong, your Taoguang Yanghui cultivation system has been activated. Now it's starting to load. An untimely sound flashed in his mind, and Youyou didn't have time to pay attention to this strange sound. Who are you? Youyou struggled, as if trying to distract the attention of the person in front of her. The other party seemed to disdain talking to her and kept their eyes fixed on their hands. At such an anxious moment, Youyou calmed down, her fair cheeks showing abnormal redness, and even a hint of blood flowed from the corners of her mouth. She took care of herself and suppressed the pain, thinking that she couldn't continue like this anymore. Her body was almost at its limit. As she scanned the cabinet with leftover light, her mind spun rapidly and a plan came to her. Shaking his hands, he slowly lifted his fair fingers and groped for something in his sleeve, deliberately amplifying his movements to attract the attention of the masked man. At that moment, her feet had already kicked out metal spikes with the movements of her hands. The Facebook person only focused on the box in her hand, defending against the attack from her hand, but was kicked directly by the barb from her foot, hitting the face door and falling to the ground. Without careful examination, Youyou quickly pulled out his pale younger brother from the cabinet and rushed out of the door. Youyou carried the tired sleeping Era on his back, and his escape was relatively smooth along the way, except for the bloodstains and chaos on the street, which made his life rational and uncomfortable. Leaving the city was a dense forest, with endless darkness spreading. Youyou gritted his teeth and carried his younger brother inside. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Running on a Rainy Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Running on a rainy night. The night rain is swirling, the moon is slightly cool, on the mainland of Zhangzhou. As night falls, dreams linger. The earth seems to have fallen into a deep sleep, and in the wilderness, black shadows flicker, only the sound of flowing water can be heard. Suddenly, a black figure stumbled past, and the vulture was startled and flew up, emitting a piercing throat growl. At this moment, Youyou was carrying his younger brother on his back and running wildly on the road. The once delicate little face is now in disarray. She can no longer distinguish between rain and sweat on her cheeks. Practicing martial arts since childhood, Youyou's will surpasses that of an ordinary person. The brown linen clothes were already soaked in blood, losing too much blood and numbing with pain. Carry another 6-year-old child on your back. Although he is only 6 years old, his body is sturdy, and his weight is indeed quite heavy. This will slow down, but I feel a bit weak. It hurts so much, I don't know what's strange about that box, Youyou thought to herself. Irregular floating footsteps, as if stepping on something, almost tripped. In this moment, the younger brother on his back was awakened by the shaking. He panicked and shouted, "Sister, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?" "It's okay, it's just that I almost fell." Youyou gasped for breath and pushed his brother on his back up with his hands. "Sister, I know you don't have the strength anymore. Let me go. I don't want to drag you down. I know it's always me who has been dragging you down. Sister, you've been working so hard, suffering everywhere, and even helping people wash clothes on such a cold day. My father said I'm the man, but I couldn't protect you, and I couldn't do anything to help you." As she spoke, Era began to cry. On this pitch-black night, the little boy seemed to have some emotional breakdown. In half a year, facing the departure of close relatives and the opposition of loved ones, the small world underwent earth-shattering changes. Long-term suppression, not yet cured of illness, and being frightened by this, looking at the pitch-black environment in front of him, the 6-year-old Era couldn't help but cry. "Don't talk nonsense, lie down honestly. Are you trying to cry out loud and lure the bad guys over? We haven't completely escaped danger yet." Youyou spoke harshly to Era. "Sister, how far do we still need to go?" After being scolded by her sister, Era sobbed and gradually controlled her emotions, lowering her voice. "It's almost there, we'll be there when you wake up, okay?" Youyou tried to tone lightly, not wanting her younger brother to find out that she had been seriously injured. After finally calming down the Era, Youyou continued to run forward. She knew that in the afternoon, relying on her cleverness and surprise, she was able to escape from the hands of that single-faced man. But if you encounter that group of people again, you may not have a chance to escape, you must escape far away. I don't know how many roads she has walked, nor how long she has walked. She relies entirely on perseverance to support herself. The cold wind penetrated her neck, and the wounds on her body grew bigger and bigger, as if the blood was about to run out. Her gaze gradually blurred and she couldn't stop, only one thought supported her. I wanted to live, and she told herself not to stop. My younger brother is still young, so I need to protect him. Youyou still doesn't give up. Her younger brother is only 6 years old, and she just wants to take him to find a place to hide. Pain, it hurts so much. The blood on my body has not stopped yet, and my consciousness is a bit blurry. But it seems that I have heard the sound behind me, like footsteps or hooves. The sound is getting closer and closer. What should we do? Who will rescue us? Heaven seems to have heard her prayers. In the blur, she saw a courtyard appearing abruptly in the distance, like a rural earthen house. A tall figure stood in front of the house. With his eyes wide open and all his might and effort, Youyou ran with all his might, like grabbing a life-saving straw. Struggling to reach the person's side, he fell to the ground and said, "Please help us." Unable to catch her breath, she exhausted all her strength and said these words before fainting. Before fainting, she only had time to see the golden-trimmed white clothes, a mysterious iron sword, and a dark green jade pendant. I fainted so quickly that Youyou couldn't see clearly. This person had a pair of red pupils, which were cold and not like human eyes. I saw this person dressed in white clothes, and from a distance, he looked like a gentleman with outstanding temperament. "Little ones, it's a bit untimely for you to come," he said word for word, with a slow tone and a hint of evil in his voice, appearing somewhat eerie in the dark, cramped, and quiet farmyard. "Forget it, 2 little kids, I can't care about you anymore." After speaking, he immediately lifted his clothes and sat cross on the ground. The golden embroidery thread on the white clothes flowed silently, revealing a hint of luxury, which was a bit out of place with the entire courtyard. I saw him gesturing and flipping, his face seemingly enduring immense pain, and his movements never stopped. Red light and shadow flowed into his body along his gestures. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, he furrowed his eyebrows tightly, but seemed indifferent. The movement of hand imprinting continues to accelerate, as if it has reached a certain limit. Gradually, a red air mass appeared around the man's body, bursting out of his body and enveloping his entire body. His clothes were torn apart, his hair stood high, revealing his fierce and ferocious biceps. At this moment, his entire body seemed to be gradually undergoing changes. At first glance, Chad saw that this man with a voice that was both cheerful and noble in appearance did not look like a human at this moment. His face had already grown scales and fangs, growing wildly. Then, blue veins appeared on his face and visible skin, wandering around. After a long time, the patterns on the man's body kept popping and disappearing, and the scales gradually increased from less to more, which was truly shocking. After a long time, the red air dissipated and the man slowly opened his emotionless eyes. Watching him no longer resemble human fingers, he seemed completely indifferent, as if admiring a piece of art, with a smile in his tone. In this quiet night, it sounded eerie and terrifying. "It seems successful, otherwise, let's do an experiment with you." After speaking, he simply grabbed into the air and a few figures fell down. "Who is coming?" The white-clad man spoke casually but with a strong and immense sense of oppression. Several masked men fell in front of him with his movements. If Youyou woke up at this moment, she would definitely have a wry smile. The person seeking help seemed more dangerous than the masked man. Even if he could see his face clearly, several masked people remained unresponsive, their expressionless black eyes revealing through their masks. "It's a bit interesting, it turns out to be a puppet." "Who is your master?" "Sir, please hand over these 2 children." A cold and emotionless voice sounded in the darkness. The man in white didn't answer, and even spoke in a relaxed tone, as if strolling leisurely in his own courtyard. He even had time to squat down and look at the unconscious Youyou siblings under his feet. The woman was covered in bloodstains all over, but the little boy on her back was unharmed and sleeping soundly. Did you hurt it? Well, you're not living either. What should I say to you? The man in white spoke a bit awkwardly, looking at the girl lying in a pool of blood with a hint of anger. With a wave of his hand, several puppets exploded into sawdust, and only a few light balls fled wildly. So it's spiritual consciousness. The puppet actually has spiritual consciousness. The man in white didn't want to meddle in his own affairs, but his skill was special, so he came to the dense forest to advance in order to avoid people's eyeliner. Unexpectedly, he met Youyou and his siblings, who collapsed in front of him. The two mortals had no self-protection ability, but a group of puppet people chased after him relentlessly. The man in white realized that this matter was not simple. What was the purpose behind it? You should know that spiritual consciousness represents a person's spiritual power. To extract spiritual consciousness, one must be in a clear state, and the production of puppet people is not simple. Who is it that took so much trouble? Taking a deep breath, the man in white sat down to regulate his breath. Youyou on the ground still maintains a dog-planing posture as she falls, while the era on her back seems to be sleeping soundly. Youyou frowned, as if she was not sleeping soundly. Staring down for a moment, the man in white had already returned to normal. I saw his tall and slender figure, dressed in white and black hair, which had been tied up high with sheepskin jade. His red phoenix eyes were slightly raised, and his eyebrows and eyes were relaxed and bright, like stars. He was handsome and full of energy, and his body seemed to have white light floating around, like a banished immortal. A white robe emerged out of thin air, draped over the bodies of Youyou and his siblings. The person in white flew away directly, as if it was just a dream before. Half asleep and half awake, the sudden sound of ding-dong, your Taoguang Yanghui cultivation system has been successfully loaded, 002 is serving you, echoed in my mind. Youyou remembers the sound, cold and mechanical. It seems that she also heard it while she was being controlled by the man on Facebook. At that time, she thought she had hallucinations. The matter was urgent, and she didn't think much, but instead realized that this thing was talking to her. Host, don't look anymore, I'm inside your body, now I'm importing information for you. After that, a mountain-like sea of information flooded into her mind. 15 years ago, she was still a modern female college student. From childhood to adulthood, she was a child of someone else's family, and her studies were always smooth sailing. With extremely high intelligence, she learned everything quickly. After being admitted to X University on recommendation at the age of only 14, she was highly regarded by the industry's top professors and has been engaged in and involved in top-secret interdisciplinary research projects. After an academic seminar, she unfortunately died in an accident intentionally created by L people, and then traveled here. So, it was the Time Management Bureau who installed this thing for me to make up for the mistake. Youyou, who has restored her memories from her past life, looks a bit different due to her experience. With a lazy expression and a calm tone, he leaned against the wall casually. How to put it, it feels like the little girl has become an upgraded version of the big witch. Yes, but if you don't trigger the cultivation task, I won't load it successfully. Host, you shouldn't have been in that accident. The Time Management Bureau discovered an error, and because you can no longer go back to the original world, we coordinated with you here. Our system will serve you wholeheartedly and provide 24-hour hosting services. The cold mechanical sound echoed in my mind. What hosting, what services? Youyou felt that he could understand every word, but when he put it all together, he still didn't understand. For the first time in his lifetime, Ji Shueshan began to doubt his intelligence. You can be in standby mode at any time, and this system will take over your body. What if I don't agree? No response. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Immortal Cultivation System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Immortal Cultivation System. Youyou understood, this system is a forced buy and sell, right? Have I been bound to your 002 for a lifetime? Can I uninstall the system? The error caused by your Time and Space Management Bureau, I am the victim. I don't have the freedom anymore, right? Okay, the upgraded version of Youyou, who just regained his memory, has a bit of a temper. Whoever lives well in modern society is told that coming here to suffer and suffer is only due to a wrong operation, and even the best temper can be irritable. As a scientific researcher in his past life, Youyou has become accustomed to leading problems, hitting the key points, and solving them. Host, if you complete the task package, 002 will automatically uninstall. The sound of 002 remains cold and mechanical, reminiscent of modern AI. What task package? Look, after fusing memories, Youyou feels like a different person. The upgraded version of G likes to go straight in. There are 8 levels in this system, and you can complete tasks to obtain happy beans. For every 1,000 happy beans accumulated, you will automatically enter the next level and increase the activity time by 3 hours. Do you want to enter the first level? Within this level, you will have 3 hours of free activity time. Youyou understood a bit, it's like a live-action game. If she does not complete the corresponding task to obtain happy bean, her body will be managed by the system. And she herself will also lose the freedom to move freely. So now only by finding ways to earn happy beans, redeem oneself, and increase free time for activities, can we completely break free from the control of the system. Having figured out the joints, Youyou felt a little relieved. What's wrong? Can it be even worse than now? There is no word, admit defeat, in Youyou's dictionary. In my past life, I have encountered countless difficulties in scientific research. Whether it's external interference or bottlenecks encountered in the project, Youyou can constantly adjust his mindset and tirelessly try again and again. As the youngest member of the team, after several years, her composure and professionalism have gradually made her the core project leader. She believes in her ability to break free from the current constraints. The sky slowly lit up, and Youyou was awakened by the pain on her body. As soon as she opened her eyes, she immediately checked her brother's condition. The little one is still sleeping soundly. Because lying on Youyou's back, her dirty and crying little face, like a little flower cat, was stained with saliva. Youyou smiled and said, "Little one is so cute. My younger brother is also the only comfort during this period. Although this little guy is small, his physique is relatively good. With such a hurried journey, his fever has also subsided, and his body and bones are even sharper than hers." Youyou secretly made up her mind to ensure that she and her younger brother had a good life in the future. Stretching lazily, Youyou felt that all her internal organs needed to shift. She quickly performed a simple treatment on the wound before having time to take a look around. This farmyard seems to be the residence of a hunter. She seemed to have seen someone before fainting yesterday. Did he save her and her brother? What about those masked men? Many questions popped out of her mind, and she felt that it was still not very safe here, so she had to hurry and leave. What rewards do I have? Continued the conversation with 002 in my mind. In modern times, although she is busy with her studies and research every day, she has also read a few novels in her free time. The female protagonists in the novel seem to have many golden fingers, so since she has worn them, is there any hidden benefits waiting for her to explore? The Zhangzhou continent she is currently in is a completely different society from modern times. But rather a continent where cultivators and mortals coexist, with hidden murders and dangers everywhere. What she learned before may not be useful, so whether she can gain more benefits for herself is related to her and her brother's survival. The future is unknown, and Youyou understands that there is no room for turning things around. She can't let go of the younger brother era in this world either. I started actively adjusting my mindset and wanted to discuss the conditions with the system. Host, you can earn enough happy beans by completing tasks. You can exchange certain permissions on the panel, or exchange a certain amount of items or information in the mall. The system still answers in a formulaic way. After speaking, a large panel was projected next to Youyou, with a small robot butler floating in the air. Fingers touching the panel turned out to be touchscreen, a bit like a tablet. Oh, it's quite high-tech, Youyou thought to himself. Jia, a tech genius, immediately got started and easily changed her panel to a pink skin. It's a cartoon girl with pink double ponytails riding on a flying machine in the air, with cherry blossoms on her head, turning around and smiling back. System. At this point, there is still leisure to change skins, and the system is speechless. Ji took a look at her happy bean and now her balance is 0, so she has no exchange permission. She doesn't have it yet. After a rough overview, it seems that there are still some built.in applications. Some are still grayish-white and not displayed, so we will not manage them for now. Among them, the icon of the character introduction flashed a light and caught her attention. This is not equivalent to having a mobile encyclopedia, it's quite useful. Youyou felt that his life was full of ups and downs, and he suddenly had some hope. I clicked on it casually, and you can enter the icon with a search interface. This is a newbie reward that you randomly drop when binding to this system. Search for a person's name to find the character information you want to know. Each search costs 10 happy beans. The system answers word by word. And this good thing, can I still get similar skill cards in the future? Youyou suddenly became interested and thought that the system was quite good. Did he also have a golden finger? The learning god is the learning god, and I suddenly feel eager to try. Host, this is random, it all depends on luck. Not all of those applications can light up, Youyou thought to himself. Continue to view the panel, there is a taskbar on the panel. Pull down the taskbar, where basic tasks are listed and divided into several categories. Labor, alchemy, artifact refining, talismans, battles, spiritual pets, etc. Each category has many pages when clicked. Youyou directly chose to arrange according to the amount, starting from the larger amount. Refining a heaven returning pill. 1,000 happy beans get a 9th grade divine beast. 1,000 happy beans. The lower amounts include upgrade to 1 level of cultivation. 20 happy beans, and there's also a spirit fish to catch. 20 happy beans planting 1 acre of low-level spiritual plants. 0.20 happy beans, a cup of spiritual tea. 20 happy beans, 1 kilogram of kaling tea. 0.20 happy beans, pulling out a ling bamboo shoot. 5 happy beans. Youyou thought that the lower amount seemed relatively simple, so let's start with the simpler ones. There are some basic tasks on the panel that you can do to earn happy beans, and the system will also automatically drop some random tasks for you to choose from. Ding dong, authorized by the system, you have entered the first level. We will now assign you a random task. Successful completion of this task will reward you with 100 happy beans. The task involves joining a cultivation sect, with a remaining duration of 3 hours. The task content system 002 also deliberately changed the tone and slowed down the speaking speed, giving Youyou a sense of returning to modern technology in just 1 second. Join the Immortal Cultivation Sect. Where to add and how to add, the first question confuses Youyou. Although she has read the entire book extensively, there are also knowledge blind spots in learning from the god Jia. Coming from a noble family, although she has some knowledge of the cultivation world. However, due to the fact that the two realms are located on the same continent, in order to avoid disputes, the two realms are not connected and information is not circulating with each other. So people in this world, including her, only have a superficial understanding. Host, take a look at the information introduction on the panel. The robot on the panel is jumping. So you're 002. I just noticed the panel and didn't notice that the little robot next to you can still move. Well, with two blue eyes and an antenna on their head, they look a bit like the low-energy version of robots used in modern society for early childhood education, Youyou thought to herself. Fortunately, the system cannot capture the host's thoughts, otherwise even robots would be blown up by Geo. The panel immediately began to load, with a circle slowly buffering. Sorry, host, the system is a bit stuck. 002 explained. Youyou. I feel like the system is not very smart, can it work? My heart is still slandering. Unexpectedly, 002 is awesome and loaded successfully. A page full of information immediately appeared on the panel. After a brief overview, the information mainly introduces the basic situation of the cultivation sects in Zhangzhou mainland. Haohan Sect, Wuji Sect, and Pengpai Sect, which are the three major sects in Zhangzhou mainland. Haohan Zone is located in the central part of the Zhangzhou continent, in the concentrated area of the Xiuzhen world's aristocratic families. There are abundant material resources and numerous mineral veins, which are essential components for refining and cultivating weapons. Therefore, there are many sword and weapon cultivation techniques in the vast sect, both of which are not affordable for ordinary casual cultivators. Beginners often adopt a recommendation system, which is often found in children of aristocratic families. The Pengpai sect is located at the eastern corner of the mainland, with a relatively small population. The area is like spring all year round, mostly in plain areas, with vast territory and abundant resources, and abundant spiritual energy. It is very suitable for planting spiritual grass, so danxiu is its specialty. The Wuji sect has the largest number of cultivators in the Zhangzhou continent, located in the western part of the vast continent. There are few plains and continuous mountains, and tens of thousands of cultivators want to join this sect every year at the beginning of the mountain. This is not only because of the status of the sect, but also because the Wuji sect is a comprehensive sect, with Huancai Peak as the main cultivator, Yinyun Peak as the main alchemist, Ling Mountain as the main cultivator of swordsmanship, Feimiao Peak as the main cultivator, and Liuli Peak as the main instrument. Getting started is also relatively simple. Then let's go to the nearest one. Youyou waved his hand. His younger brother was still young and couldn't bear the long journey. The recent one belongs to the Haohan sect, but because it belongs to the recommendation system, the host may not be able to successfully enter the sect. The voice of 002 came. So, is this a noble magic school? Youyou was greatly shocked. Host, the world of cultivation is most lacking in resources. So, scattered cultivators are isolated and lack resources, making it difficult to survive on this continent. Therefore, cultivators generally choose to join a sect. The vast sect has abundant terrain resources and controls the most mineral veins. Many aristocratic families gather here, and the emphasis is more on elite education. Therefore, it is difficult for ordinary cultivators to enter. Your conditions for joining the infinite sect are the most suitable. The system provides a lengthy explanation like an endorsement. Okay, how can I go then? After listening to a lot, Youyou roughly understood the basic situation of the cultivation world in Zhangzhou continent today, and also understood that at this time, the wings were not abundant and could only obey the system's arrangements. I will temporarily take care of your body and take you into the cultivation world. Your remaining mission time will start counting down from the infinite sect. Youyou wants to learn more about the situation, and the system has already started counting down in her mind. Now entering custody mode, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With a blink of an eye, Youyou had already lost control of her body. Her consciousness seems to be confined in one place, and she can also share the external situation through the body of Youyou after being entrusted with 002. Youyou, who was entrusted by 002, stood up at this moment. She moved mechanically for a moment, as if not quite accustomed to controlling her body, with a slight stiffness in her movements. So what, you're on the same hand and foot, Youyou reminded in her mind. Host, system matching in progress. Are you a new system? Youyou was curious. Host. It involves an unknown domain, and I cannot answer it. Technology genius Youyou is actually a bit curious about this Time and Space Management Bureau. It seems that even asking 002 can't find anything. 002 gradually changed his stiff movements and adjusted his expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Infinite Questioning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Infinite questioning. After presenting a very formulaic smile on her face, she could then see her slightly baby fat face undergoing a crazy transformation, kneading and flattening like a dough. Youyou's mood is a bit like riding a roller coaster, and her face won't turn into facial paralysis, will it? After 10 seconds, my face finally stopped twitching. Youyou had never seen such an expression on her face before. She can be bright, confident, resolute, generous, and calm, but she can never be shy or petite. This expression is a bit excessive, and 002 started chatting aimlessly. 002 uses the system's built.in emoji pack. Okay, it's quite intelligent. I saw Youyou, who was entrusted by 002, take out a circular iron plate from somewhere and stand on it. It's probably an aircraft, Youyou thought. But his body had already taken his younger brother into the air, and Youyou flew for the first time. Youyou, who always believed in materialism, once again collapsed his faith. Although she is only a consciousness now, she can still see the outside world through Youyou's eyes, but her body does not obey her commands. I saw 002 flying high into the air at a very fast speed, and Youyou was able to have a clear view of the scenery below. In no time, he had already passed this dense forest and arrived at a small town. The people outside the city went to the market early in the morning as usual. Lu Laohan, who was in his 50s, was one of them. He was wearing a yellow cloth vest that was almost worn out, with a towel draped around his neck. His dark face was already covered in glistening beads of sweat, but his steps did not slow down at all. I left home early in the morning and the cart had been walking for 2 hours. He rushed to the market to grab a good spot and sold his cart full of potatoes. Suddenly, a figure flew over the sky. "Grandpa, there's someone flying up there." Lu Daodu, wearing a white coat and sitting in a pile of potatoes, clapped his hands and shouted. Lu Laohan listened and looked up into the sky, but saw nothing. Just assumed that his grandson may be joking and teasing him. "Good grandson, I woke up early today. I'm hungry. There's no one here, it could be a big bird." "Don't be afraid," he said softly. After speaking, he took out the still hot corn bun from his pocket and handed it to Lu Daodu to eat. "Grandpa, Daodu is a bit hungry," Lu Daodu said in a milky voice. "You're welcome, take it over immediately and start gnawing on it. Grandpa, you eat too." Lu Daodu tore off half of it and handed it to Lu Laohan. "Daodu, Grandpa is not hungry. You can eat on your own. When we earn money, we'll go to school." As he spoke, Lu Laohan had already set off again. The 3-year-old baby solemnly agreed. What Youyou saw in his field of vision was passing through many towns, streets, and wilderness. The scene was constantly changing, and she had already passed the initial feeling of novelty. Over time, she also felt bored. Suddenly, it was pitch black in front of me, as if passing through a long corridor, like a mountain tunnel without lights, but there were occasional rustling sounds inside. 002 doesn't seem to be flying anymore. How does this posture feel? A bit off. Where is this? Host, this is the corridor leading to the realm of cultivation in the mortal world. You will arrive at your destination in a moment. The mechanical sound of 002 rang out. It turned out that 002 was crawling through the cave with his younger brother on his back. No wonder he felt his vision pitch black. Climbing a dog hole is still reasonable, isn't it? After being entrusted, Youyou no longer had a sense of time and 5 senses. She only felt that it had been a long, long time. After regaining his senses, he had already drilled a hole and arrived at the foot of Wuji Sect Mountain. Host, we have delivered you. You have spent a total of 10 happy beans using the time-space conversion function, with a remaining balance of 10 happy beans and 3 hours of task time. Youyou suddenly didn't want to speak. This is because you haven't made any money yet and have started to owe. What time-space conversion is? Isn't it like climbing a dog hole? Suddenly, Youyou felt that his hands and feet could be controlled as the earth spun around. It seems that 002 has released control over her body and quickly looked at it. Apart from the mud on her pants and body, there is nothing uncomfortable with her body. Even she felt that the air here was really fresh and imposing, and couldn't help but take a few more breaths, giving her a feeling of overall comfort. At this moment, the foot of Wuji Sect was already crowded with people, with noisy and bustling voices. To be honest, Youyou has only seen this battle during modern holidays when traveling. After crossing the mainland of Zhangzhou, he really didn't see so many people gathering together. In the distance, the mountains stretch into a vast expanse, towering into the clouds. The mist surrounds the mountains, creating a fairy-like atmosphere. Is this the realm of cultivation? What's different from the mortal world? Many cultivators have already started rubbing their hands and preparing to climb up. It seems that they are about to start. Looking at the mountaintop hidden in the sea of clouds in front of him, Youyou quickly woke up his younger brother and said, "Xiaoyuan, wake up, we're here." Epic rubbed his eyes as if he hadn't slept enough and yawned heavily. Lazily like a kitten, but suddenly alert and clear-headed. "Sister, where are the bad guys?" After speaking, "Look around." "Don't look, don't worry, little one, we are temporarily safe. We are already at the foot of the Wuji Sect. If we climb up the mountain and can join the sect here, then we don't have to wander outside." Youyou patiently answered and briefly introduced the basic situation of Wuji Sect. "Really? Great, sister, let's hurry up." Epic jumped up with joy. During this period, although Epic was a child, his whole heart was still hanging in suspense. I would hear my sister say that there was no need to rush around anymore, there was a place to live, and I was immediately eager to try. "Yes, we need to hurry up." Youyou, who had always been calm, thought about the task and felt a bit anxious. The two of them followed the command and climbed up with everyone. At the foot of the mountain, everyone's speed was quite good, including some young children and some young and strong middle-aged people. But gradually, many people feel a bit tired. Some started using their hands and feet. Some were panting heavily while holding on to wooden sticks. Some people start to open their water bags halfway and drink water to rest. Some even sit on the platform and start meditating to regulate their breathing. The scenery on the mountain is good, but Youyou didn't have time to see the scenery on the roadside. He ran all the way with his younger brother to the halfway up the mountain. Exceeding many people, gradually moving from the end of the team to the middle and front of the team, which attracted many people's attention. Who are these two children? Why are they so relaxed? A person began to pick up a water bottle and drink water, chatting with the person next to them. "I don't know, I've been crawling next to them all along. It seems like the two kids haven't rested," the other person continued. Youyou thought they had good physical fitness, so he effortlessly ran to the front of the team. Due to their birth as a general, the two of them have had a lot of physical training since childhood. Sometimes they play this as a game, and sometimes they even add weight training, chasing each other and enjoying it. But they didn't know that this mountain puts pressure on ordinary people. The higher the altitude, the more spiritual energy there is, and the greater the pressure on people, so many people are already panting after walking more than 10 steps. This makes it very likely that if ordinary people come over, they will lack oxygen and have difficulty breathing, which is not suitable for human survival. But for those who cultivate immortals, especially those with good qualifications, this place has abundant spiritual energy and is an excellent place for cultivation. The siblings were unaware of the situation and ran around, enjoying the fresh air and beautiful environment in the mountains to relieve their gloomy mood for the past 6 months. At the same time, this is also the only time recently when the siblings have released themselves and returned to their childlike innocence. 002, why can't those people walk anymore? Youyou, who had a strong observational ability, asked. Host, this is not an ordinary mountain. The reason why Wuji sect chose this place is because it has abundant spiritual energy. The higher the altitude, the more spiritual energy it has. But correspondingly, the greater the pressure, the thinner the oxygen. This is a trial for new disciples in the Wuji sect, and it is also the reason why there are thousands of people who want to enter the Wuji sect every year, but very few can climb to the top of the mountain within the specified time. What's the reason? Isn't it just climbing a mountain? Youyou asked in reverse. Host, due to the natural terrain of the Wuji sect, the vast majority of people have been screened out. You and the era have a rare cultivation physique and a natural affinity for spiritual energy. They are well adapted to the high concentration of spiritual energy environment here, which is why the system continues to popularize science so easily. I see, no wonder I feel like my body has become lighter. It's very comfortable here and suitable for living. Youyou looked around, surrounded by lush vegetation and lush vegetation. Birds that look like modern 8-tone birds fly down from branches and are not afraid of people. They start eating the dry food residue left by passers-by on the stone steps and make crisp bird calls. Youyou remembered the poem by Tao Yuanming that she had memorized before. Once in a cage, return to nature. She fell in love with the environment here. Youyou looked at the early morning sky and was about to take his younger brother to rest and drink some mountain spring water. He casually asked, how much time is left for my mission? Host, there's almost an hour left. The system doesn't ask me about my attitude of not reminding you. After hearing this, Youyou didn't have time to rest, so he picked up his younger brother and continued to charge forward, which attracted many people's attention. Sister, won't we take a break? Epoch was very puzzled. Sister has always been calm. What's going on today? It seems that others are not as anxious. Xiaoyuaner, let's climb to the mountaintop and rest. Can we hold on for a while? Youyou asked. Okay. Epoch thought his sister was playing games with him, and immediately mustered up enthusiasm to climb up again. Their physical strength and endurance are already good, and over the past 6 months, they have been able to endure hardships, and their patience and endurance have greatly improved. Those 2 children are so fast, it seems they must be top-grade spiritual roots. A group of people said. Yeah, such a genius is hard to come by. I didn't expect to see 2 of them today, said the other person. Wow, that's really impressive, said a chubby little man in his slightly old-fashioned sapphire blue scholarly uniform on the way, panting heavily as he supported a thick branch on the sidewalk. This little scholar has a somewhat thick figure, with a head that has not yet fully stretched out. His skin is fair, and there are a few small freckles on the collapsed bridge of his nose, which looks a bit cute like a teenager. There are already faint traces of sweat soaking on his back. He looked up in the direction of the 2 and said enviously, I didn't run as fast as them even if I let Xiao Hei pull me. They are so amazing, you must get to know them if you have the chance. Young master, don't worry about talking nonsense, the attendant Xiao Hei, as his name suggests, quickly reminded him in a low voice. Getting started requires sincerity, and cheating in various ways is an unwritten rule for all sect apprentices. In the midst of everyone's discussion, Youyou had already done his best to pull his brother to the top of the mountain, which was the entrance of the sect. Looking up, the scenery in front of me is even more expansive. The distant mountains that come into view are like dye, with ancient and majestic buildings in front of us. I saw that the entire gate was made of purple-red rosewood, with a black plaque hanging above. On it, several powerful characters were written in flowing cursive script. Wuji Sect. Upon closer observation, these words have a profound Zen meaning. Just as I was about to step into the gate, I was stopped by a few people who appeared out of thin air. "Friend, are you the new applicants for this year?" The leader was dressed in a turquoise gate uniform, with a 27 or 8-year-old appearance, a white and clean face, deep and approachable eyes, and was one of the Wuji Sect cultivators who came to be responsible for the registration work this time. Suddenly, the panel appeared next to Youyou. She secretly glanced at it, as if only she could see it, and clicked on the icon of the character introduction. "Host, you have consumed 10 happy beans for the character query, with a balance of 0.20. The system sound rang, as if no one else could hear it. I saw a bubble box appearing on the head of that pure disciple. Liao Liwen, the leader and disciple of the Lingshan peak of the Wuji Sect. Skill. Wuji Sect sword technique. Weapon. Snowflake double-edged sword. Unique secret technique. Versatile cultivation technique that can imitate a person anytime, anywhere." He looked at Youyou and his siblings, each of whom was in their prime, tall and slender, with fair faces that seemed to reveal some baby fat, and clear and firm eyes. The other person is a child about 5 or 6 years old, with a tiger-like head and a tiger-like brain, and his eyes are not shy, showing a bit of maturity beyond his age. These two people are so young that they were able to arrive first. It seems like they are good seedlings, but I am slightly certain in my heart. "May I ask who is going to participate in the selection of the Wuji Sect?" the person asked. "We both are." Youyou thought that Liao Liwen was probably the interviewer in charge of the exam. "Oh, did you guys climb to the top of the mountain by yourselves?" "Yes," the two nodded together. After Liao Liwen finished speaking, he casually chatted with them. "How old are you? Are you siblings, blah blah?" It seemed like waiting was a bit boring, and he was very talkative. "Go ahead and register," Liao Liwen pointed to them. Following the direction of his fingers, the two of them finally saw a solitary table placed under a big tree at the corner of the entrance of the sect, with a stone, a wolf hair, a collapsed paper, and an inkstone on top. "This registration desk is a bit carefree," Youyou said thank you and walked towards it with his younger brother. Unexpectedly, the dozen or so people who had just arrived following Youyou and his siblings rushed towards him with a loud roar upon hearing these words. When they regained their senses, Youyou had already been pushed to the back. I saw Liao Liwen sitting neatly at the table, dipping his wolf hair in ink and starting to register the first one. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. I come from the mortal world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. I come from the mortal world. The first person was very tall, dressed in grey linen clothes, with tan skin and hair tied in a ponytail at the back, looking very capable. "What is your surname and who is it?" "My name is Li Zhuang, and I live right at the foot of the mountain." Liao Liwen, who just gave directions to Youyou, became interested. While registering their basic information, the two of them began chatting from place to place, discussing which street wine was good and which shop was lacking in weight. Youyou didn't expect that Liao Liwen was still a social bully, and anyone caught could have a hot chat. Youyou and others in the back listened, and everyone had already learned that Li Zhuang was an orphan. He had been doing some small business at the foot of the mountain, begging on the street before the age of 5. After falling, he became enlightened and started doing some small business because it is at the foot of Wuji Sect Mountain. I also want to come up and try my luck. Even if I find some work to do, it is better than living alone. Everyone was a little exhausted. Half a column of incense had passed by when the second one was registered. Youyou urgently asked for the system time again. "Host, you still have 20 minutes left. You can click on the panel to view it," the system replied emotionlessly. After speaking, Youyou indeed saw a small clock appearing in the upper right corner of the panel, displaying the countdown to time. After waiting for a while, Youyou felt that she couldn't drag on any longer. At this point, the registration personnel seemed to realize that Liao Liwen was too talkative, so they switched to someone else to handle the registration. Youyou quickly shamelessly wanted to cut in line. She quickly walked up to the front with her younger brother, Era, and asked, "My younger brother has a bit of heatstroke. Can we register first?" What I wanted to say in the Era, I stopped under the gaze of Youyou. At the front was a handsome boy who looked quite talkative and dressed as a scholar. He was dressed in a blue and grey cloth robe with some ground hair balls on it, and his size and length seemed a bit inappropriate. He was very plump. "Sure, you can step forward." The voice was pure, quite pleasant, with a hint of youthfulness. "It's not possible, we're in the back." "Why do you agree?" someone exclaimed, extremely dissatisfied with the two people cutting in line. Liao Liwen stood there without saying a word, his expression a bit serious. The people behind me fell silent, joking. "They haven't registered yet, so we can't provoke this old man." Youyou was registered as a female disciple, around 30 years old, with a calm temperament. "What's your name?" "Youyou." "How big is it?" 15 years old. "Where do you live at home?" "Yaobang country." The hand holding the pen paused for a moment and didn't say much, continuing to write. Surprisingly, it came from the mortal realm. "Yeah, I've never heard of it before. Is there a way? Do mortals have spiritual roots?" Youyou listened to the whispers behind her and remembered the dog hole. She didn't want to talk anymore, so she couldn't say that I had crawled through the dog hole. "Excuse me." However, it seems that in order to avoid causing chaos in order, the cultivation world and the mortal world are not interconnected. Because there are very few descendants of mortals who have spiritual roots, it can be said that there are basically no, or a very small number who never find themselves carrying spiritual roots. Although this senior sister is puzzled, she doesn't ask much. Her temperament is calm and gives people a sense of calmness. "Let's test our spiritual roots." Still speaking at a very gentle pace, it feels very comfortable. Youyou placed his hand on it, and a white light flashed from the spirit stone. "Isn't this?" Liao Liwen beside him exclaimed in surprise. After speaking, the machine that tested the spiritual roots turned into 3 beams of light. It turned out to be my days, it's the 3 spiritual roots. Please line up in the queue on the right. Host, you are a mutated spiritual root with multiple attributes mixed in, and your exceptional talent may attract great attention. For your safety, I have tampered with the test results for you. Currently, you are a 3 spiritual root cultivator, and it has been 3 hours. You have completed this task, and your balance is 80 kaisen beans. I will take over your body for the next 21 hours. Ding dong, authorized by the system, now entering custody mode, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A whirlwind occurred, and Youyou's body was out of control again. I saw Youyou, who had been entrusted, standing upright in front of the table without moving, with his eyebrows drooping and pleasing to the eye. The people behind were in a hurry and said, "Hey, I've registered and I'll go queue up." The people in front of me have a slightly impatient voice. The entrusted, Youyou, slowly turned her head and said, "What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly, please say it again." The people queuing up at the back. Youyou, how do you think this artificial intelligence looks a bit inflexible? He said he wanted you to queue on the right side, Youyou said in his mind. 002 walked into the team with little familiarity, controlling his body. Silent and not engaging in conversations with people nearby. Those who are familiar with her will feel that Youyou's temperament is vastly different from before. If my previous demeanor was a bit carefree and flamboyant, it would be a bit like a small family jade, and my actions were extremely unnatural, even with situations where I was on the same hand and foot. Youyou in her mind followed 002's field of vision and could only see the ground. What have you been looking at all this time, my brother? Let's see how my brother is doing. Host, your younger brother is a heavenly spirit root, so we shouldn't be together. As expected, the crowd exclaimed in surprise, it's actually the heavenly spirit root. It's terrifying for future generations. The era was led by disciples from the sect to a team with few people on the other side. Youyou only heard the sound, but couldn't see the situation of the era, feeling a bit anxious in his heart. Are you also here to cultivate immortality? A chubby little man with small freckles on his face approached, who was the little scholar in the blue coat on the mountainside. Great, just as he was on the mountainside, he wanted to meet two people. What kind of luck is this? I saw it as soon as I climbed the mountain. It was the second most correct thing he insisted on not going to the vast peak and sneaking here to do. Youyou nodded lightly and remained silent. Youyou didn't expect to come here and meet a second social bull. Normally, she would definitely have a friendly conversation with him. But now, she keeps urging the system to check on her brother's situation in her mind, but the system remains motionless. Youyou was so angry that she wanted to curse, knowing for the first time what trusteeship meant. If she retracts the system quite well, it's not just a golden finger, it's simply a black finger. She was like being locked in a small black room, looking at the system's built-in expression, movements, and twists, she couldn't do it. Sister. Epic saw that she didn't look for him, so he ran over to find her with a rare smile on his face. Sister, they said I am the heavenly spirit root and they want to take me to study with the elders. They also said that they can earn money to buy you beautiful clothes in the future, and we no longer need to live in the inn. No one will come to harm us anymore. Yuanluo said a lot, his face turning red, obviously a little excited. The system-hosted Youyou did not respond to her in a timely manner. Sister, what's wrong with you? Are you unhappy? Epic also realized something was wrong. Why didn't the usually gentle sister say a word at this moment? You should respond to him quickly. It's not easy for a child to feel a sense of achievement. Is it easy? Look at how pitiful he is standing there. Youyou roared. She couldn't bear to watch anymore, and the system felt a bit silly. She made up her mind to quickly pass the level and regain herself. Happy. This sentence came out after some exploration. However, the era seemed to receive tremendous recognition and laughed happily. Then he started talking with Youyou. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Two Geniuses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Two Geniuses. The joy of a child always comes easily, immersed in a sense of happiness without any ups and downs. He quickly forgets about his sister's abnormality and only considers her to be distracted. Are you siblings? The chubby guy started talking again. What advice do you have? Don't be fooled by the era, just forget that he was a small tyrant at home before. This will give him confidence, and he won't restrain his personality anymore. He raised his small face and clasped his fists in a serious manner, asking. Don't look, if you grow a few years old, there really is something like this. The hair of the era is short now, somewhat like a modern flat head, with a slightly tanned face and surprisingly bright eyes. Due to being born into a noble family, his father treated him as a successor from a young age, which led to the dominant personality of the era, which was a small tyrant who was always hostile towards heaven and earth. Under the brilliance of Youyou himself, Yuan's talent was overlooked due to his young age. Youyou thought that Yuan was truly the smartest and most talented child she had ever seen in 2 lifetimes, and he was not inferior to her. Youyou thought, probably this little Yuaner will also be a cool guy in the future. Looking at it with a mother-like contentment, there was a growing feeling of our family having a baby growing up. No, it's nice to see you all. The chubby little man quickly waved his hand, and the small freckles on his face shook as he waved his hand. He had seen 2 people walking up the stairs on the mountain road before, as if they were walking flat on the ground, so he must have been hiding it deep. Youyou thinks it's quite cute. This chubby little guy looks quite interesting and speaks in a friendly manner, making him likable at first glance. I just saw that you were coming to the top of the mountain soon, so I wanted to ask. With a big brother-like expression, he patted the head of Era. Don't touch me, I don't know if a man's head can't be touched randomly. Epoch had a slight temper and felt uneasy. Okay, the chubby little boy said with an embarrassed scratch of his head. My name is Fang Lunan. Hello, if you can enter the Wuji sect, we will be fellow disciples, he said kindly. The Youyou, hosted by 002, looked at the ground without saying a word, as if she was no longer online, while the original version of G was frantic. 002, are you still there? Host, I'm here. 002 obediently replied, his voice changing from mechanical to childlike. Youyou was taken aback and said, did you change your voice? I used the built-in original sound before, but just changed to a system sound. How's it going, isn't it good? 002 patiently explained. Youyou felt that this system was looking at the ground, maybe just now it was adjusting the sound. This 002 may have been lost in thought at some point, and she could only follow her gaze towards the ground. Her eyes were filled with a piece of blue stone paved on the ground, which was speechless. Youyou had nowhere to complain. Which peak are you planning to go to? I stayed at the inn at the foot of the mountain for a while and heard them say that there are 5 peaks in the Wuji sect. Each peak has a different master's unique skills, and more disciples from each peak follow their names. The types and attributes of spiritual roots also determine the direction of cultivation to a certain extent. I don't know if you can freely choose. The chubby boy continued to argue. Big brother, where do you want to go? Epoch saw that this chubby little brother knew a lot, and his attitude improved a lot as he opened his big black eyes to seek answers. I haven't figured it out yet, actually I don't like wielding knives and swords. After speaking, he looked around like a thief and saw that his attendant, Xiao He, was not beside him, feeling relieved. Actually, to be honest with you, I sneaked out of my home. There are too many rules at home. And what they asked me to learn, I'm not interested. I was just thinking of getting some fresh air for a while, but I really want to stay far away from home. After walking for a few months, I found out that there is a sect here, so I came over to take a look. If I pass, I will practice here. The little chubby guy seemed to open his talk folder, as if he treated Youyou and his siblings as old friends, and talked incessantly, catching Youyou and his siblings and saying it, regardless of whether anyone listened carefully. Epic friend, our sect's elder Deng invited you to the main peak for a chat. I wonder if you're interested in cola. As Epic chatted here, another cultivator wearing a green and green door uniform walked over. This time, it's not the same as the previous 2 times, but a tall and serious middle-aged man who solemnly bowed to the era. Our sect's elder Fu invites you to Huansai Peak for a chat. I don't know where another cultivator appeared, and he also arched his hand. Junior brother Wang, please distinguish between come first and arrive first. It was my invitation that came first. The first one to come expressed dissatisfaction. Elder Fu has entered the late stage of yuanying and wants to find a disciple to inherit his legacy. Let's hear what the young friend has to say first, another retorted. Don't argue at the door, you two. This year's newcomers will see a joke. Epic Taoist, please go to ask Zhuxian for help first. Later, a disciple will arrange your next steps. Our sect will fully respect your personal opinions and allow you to choose a suitable master on your own. Liao Liwen came out to resolve this conflict, and the other 2 immediately stopped talking. Youyou thinks this beginner's program is quite interesting, it's a bit like the student union in a university. Good students may be eagerly sought after by everyone. I remember when she was only 14 years old and was recommended to university, a group of admissions office teachers came to her home to ask her to apply for the corresponding school and major. Finally, she chose a dual major in computer science and materials that she was relatively interested in. Later, she was noticed by her mentor and went to the laboratory where she was interested to do research with him. Looking back now, those days of wholehearted dedication to learning and research were really enjoyable. I wonder if Wuji's sect is her second school. Can I be with my sister? Epoch remained silent, looking at the battle in front of him. He only cared whether he wanted to separate from his sister. Brother, go ahead and take care of yourself. You're already a man. You can't just follow your sister all the time. You need to learn to handle things independently. Sister believes you can handle them. Before Liao Liwen could reply, Youyou, who was in charge of 002, quickly replied. Hey, I want to be with my younger brother. He's still young, Youyou shouted loudly in her mind, but no one heard her except for 002. Just kidding, my younger brother is so young, how can he face it alone? Host, your brother's heavenly spirit root is a good cultivation seedling that they have finally dug up, while you are just an ordinary spirit root, and you will not be separated. 002 is still the same child voice as before, it answered. How about I test them again? Youyou didn't care too much anymore. Seeing her younger brother so young, she still didn't feel at ease and came up with this solution. Host, what system am I? You are 002. Full name. Do you mean to keep a low profile? Youyou understood the literal meaning. Host, the answer is correct. In your previous life, you were just too dazzling. The Time and Space Administration specially customized this system for you to make up for their mistake. Youyou fell silent. On the one hand, she wanted to protect her younger brother under her wings. On the other hand, she knew that neither of them had the ability to protect themselves now, and even if they were in a pile, it would be useless. After a long period of psychological construction, she gradually convinced herself. If two geniuses are born horizontally, it is difficult not to attract people's envy. In this cruel cultivation world, only absolute strength is useful. Before one becomes strong, one should still be low-key in life. What's going on with this spiritual root? Youyou knew nothing about the basic knowledge of cultivating immortals. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Separation of Siblings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Separation of Siblings, What's going on with this spiritual root? Youyou knew nothing about the basic knowledge of cultivating immortals. Host, the relevant information we have found for you is as follows. Spiritual roots are divided into many attributes, such as gold, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, wind, thunder, etc. According to the category of spiritual roots, they are further divided into pseudo-spiritual roots, heavenly spiritual roots, double spiritual roots, 3 spiritual roots, 4 spiritual roots, 5 spiritual roots, variant spiritual roots, etc. It seems a bit complicated, but what is the pseudo-spiritual root? Pseudo-spiritual roots are the least qualified spiritual roots, also known as miscellaneous spiritual roots, with several attributes, but each type of spiritual root is incomplete. What about me and Era? Youyou continued to ask. Host, the Era is the heavenly spirit root, with abundant spiritual roots and a single attribute of spiritual roots. This type of spiritual root is very rare, with unparalleled aptitude and cultivation speed far exceeding that of ordinary cultivators. Host, you are a mutated spiritual root with multiple attributes. Your spiritual roots are abundant and your cultivation speed is similar to that of a heavenly spiritual root, both of which are extremely rare qualifications. Through systematic science popularization, Youyou gradually understood that the attributes of spiritual roots determine the direction of success, and the quality of spiritual roots determines the speed of cultivation. This is probably the reason why all the big shots are competing for the Era, and I don't know what kind of spiritual root the Era is. Youyou is very curious. She is not worried that Xiaoyuaner cannot afford the hardship of cultivation. Xiaoyuaner has been trained by her father as a successor since childhood and has never been spoiled. Moreover, as a boy, although Youyou has been doting on the era since childhood, it is still his nature to liberate him, which is why he has the rebellious nature of the era. She always believed that it was not necessary for all children to be carved according to the same mold, in a proper and honest manner. Therefore, she did not interfere much with the fact that she liked to jump up and down during her childhood in the era of childhood. Although this child returned to the tiger, she still had her own kind bottom line. Moreover, now the siblings have no other suitable path to take besides this one. But he is so young, yet he has excellent talent. Will he bear the blame? Youyou became a little worried again. It seemed like she had to double her efforts. Only by constantly improving herself can she protect herself and her younger brother, and she made a secret determination. Youyou pondered the causes and consequences and quickly agreed to the system's approach, allowing his younger brother to go alone. But the system is still in custody, and she cannot speak to her younger brother alone. She can only think of a chance to explain it to her younger brother later. Era is a sister control. He obeys his sister's arrangements very much and quickly prepares to go on the road alone. The little fart child was not too tall and said goodbye to Youyou in a mature manner. Sister, please stay at ease and I will come to find you soon. He followed a few disciples in the sect. This time, 002 didn't look at the ground. Youyou's gaze was directly in the direction of his younger brother, watching his solid steps and his figure quite steady. Unexpectedly, it will be 3 months from now. Youyou, played by 002, continued to, obediently, wait by the side after his younger brother left. Youyou couldn't move behind the scenes, didn't know what the situation was, and could only be bored. Suddenly, I heard the small table registered in front of me, and there was a commotion in the crowd. I only heard one person loudly questioning, "We have finally reached the mountaintop and passed the trial. Why should we go back? The sect of Wuji sect is so big, but it is untrustworthy." That's right, we came for one of the 3 major doors, but we were left behind. The visitor is a guest, the visitor is a guest, Liao Liwen explained. Unexpectedly, the scene became even more chaotic, but the cultivators wearing turquoise door robes turned a blind eye and seemed accustomed to it. "Isn't it clear that we only recruit so many people every year," said a person in the queue of Youyou, who had already passed. "Who's to blame for not arriving within their designated time? That's right, it's not easy to live a leisurely life now. With limited resources for cultivating immortals, the main sect has naturally become a coveted commodity," someone said. "Yeah, I'm just a casual cultivator, practicing on my own. It's not just a lack of elixirs and techniques. I've been here for 3 years now, and I've made enough preparations. Today is the ugly time, so I'm waiting at the foot of the mountain. That's not because it's not yet dawn. It's black." In the team where Youyou is, I started talking one by one. As everyone has already registered and passed the trial, the atmosphere here is relatively relaxed. Although Youyou was entrusted, all 5 senses were shared. Due to limited vision, she listened with great interest, treating it as a book. "Ladies and gentlemen," a majestic and deep voice came from above. Everyone looked up one after another, and saw an elder appear in mid-air, with a fairy-like demeanor and graceful demeanor, his clothes fluttering. "Meeting is fate, gathering is blessings. Today we are gathered here, and our sect is willing to establish good relationships. Those who arrive will receive a foundation-building pill as a gift. The recruitment quota for this year is full, and we hope that all cultivators will come again next year. We have the chance to meet again," the elder continued. Everyone felt a heavy pressure on their bodies, some had already felt a cold sweat, while others had even trembled uncontrollably and knelt on the ground. The elder arched his hand towards everyone, and all those present who did not pass the trial had an extra wooden box in their hands. Someone opened the box and exclaimed, it's a real foundation building pill. That's right, I remember this fragrance. Fellow Taoists, I'm going back to break through. See you next year. Without looking back, they ran quickly down the mountain. The sect has been very generous this year, and has actually distributed foundation building pills to those who are not destined to enter. Someone in the team spoke again. Is the foundation pill so good? Some people are as puzzled as Youyou. Of course, when a cultivator breaks through the foundation building pill can help them break through the constraints of the last layer. It can be said that with the blessing of the pill, it is like adding a layer of insurance to the cultivator, so it is naturally very precious. However, because there are too many lower-level cultivators, and it is difficult to obtain spiritual herbs to prepare the pill, so it is difficult to obtain one pill during scattered cultivation. Someone in the team said. So why don't we? Asked the impatient person, afraid of missing out on their own benefits. Do you still lack elixirs after getting started? One person sneered and said. Wuji sect seems to have a lot of experience and has already removed the table. And those who did not pass the trial benefited, knowing in front of the large storefront that further investigation would not yield any good fruit for themselves, so they had to reluctantly descend the mountain. After these people left, only Youyou and others who had passed the trial were left on the large open space in front of the door. And just now, the elder had already fallen from mid-air to the ground. He turned his gaze to Youyou and others, then nodded to Liao Liwen next to him, without saying anything, and led the way into the door. Xiaoyuaner and her sister are separated, and she can't bear to part with them. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Fatty Men. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Fatty men, everyone, please follow me in the order of registration, said Liao Liwen. Youyou, entrusted by 002, slowly followed the team and walked forward in small steps, leaving Youyou completely oblivious. The person behind put their hand on her shoulder. Sister, if you don't want to leave, should I carry you on my back? Her voice was low and her words were frivolous. Youyou could hear that she was about to vomit even after dinner the next night. Unexpectedly, there can still be salty pig hands in the other world. Without honest cultivation, what are you thinking every day? Looking back, the target was a young man in his 20s. He was dressed in a pink wide-breasted outer robe, with a greasy head and a pink face. The collar was slightly open, but his eyes were hooked upwards and he was smirking. The man in front of me, named Zhao Fa, originally named Zhao Erniu, was a performer before practicing immortality. He used his decent appearance to flirt with others and earn some money to spend. Later, he entered the martial arts world and became a casual cultivator, but still couldn't change his habits. There's a chance to get to know each other. His words were frivolous. Youyou's past life was not without understanding of human relationships and worldly wisdom. It was precisely because he lived too thoroughly that he was able to focus on what he loved. As soon as she heard this sentence, she immediately understood. Youyou was a bit crazy, wanting to hit him in the face with a hammer, but he actually talked to his aunt like that. But 002 remained unmoved, and the system may not be able to interpret the meaning in the words, just controlling Youyou's body to stare blankly. In the eyes of outsiders, it is typical of being bullied and not daring to speak up. Ouch! The oily and powdery person seemed to have been injured and just lay on the ground. Who can't bear to watch and take action? After entering the sect, your every word and action represents the sect. Before entering, no one cares about what you are like, but when entering our sect, you must remember all the sect rules, one of which is not to harm your fellow sect members. Liao Liwen saw all of this in his eyes, like a different person, with a stern face. His deep eyes were no longer smiling, and he sternly reprimanded the person. Directly positioning the behavior of greasy men as harming their peers, Youyou finds it very satisfying. It's not just about harming her classmates, she feels like her eyes and ears have been severely damaged, and her liking for Liao Liwen has become stronger in her heart. It's no wonder one can become a principal when they can accept and release. Zhao Fa, go to Sigua Cliff to reflect for half a day. The names of the disciples who started this year seem to be well known, and he then instructed the nearby cultivators. Yes, senior uncle, the disciple replied respectfully. After speaking, a cultivator wearing a green robe on one side pulled him away. The man with oily hair and pink face seemed to want to argue, but he couldn't seem to make a sound. Everyone was surprised to see that Liao Liwen, who looked young, was still the martial uncle of the Wuji sect. The surroundings were silent, and the originally bustling procession became peaceful and divided. The crowd lined up in a very orderly manner, slowly stepping into the gate under the guidance of the recruiting disciples, fearing that their words and actions would be inappropriate and leave a bad impression on the seniors. Youyou thought to himself that before entering the workforce, Liao Liwen gave the impression of a social bully, but after entering the workforce, it made people feel serious, with a big contrast. And what he said is also very interesting. He doesn't care about his behavior before getting started, but he should be cautious in his words and actions after getting started. It seems that the Wuji sect has very strict management over its disciples. But he gave the people outside the sect a foundation as compensation. The lenient and strict style of dealing with others makes people feel very comfortable, which is probably one of the reasons why the Wuji sect has been passed down to the world and has always been one of the three major sections. Youyou was pondering in her mind, and before she knew it, 002, who was taking care of her body, had already followed the team forward. The number of disciples recruited this year is only about 180, depending on age. The biggest feeling seems to be around 30, and the youngest is around 10 years old. The majority of men in the team are around 15 to 6 women. I don't know where my younger brother went either. Oh, that chubby little guy and his followers don't know when they won't be talking to him anymore. The feeling of not being able to freely control the body is really bad. The vision is very narrow, and it is completely impossible to fully and timely understand the external situation. System, how much time do I have to recover? Host, you are currently in the first level and have 3 hours of free time per day. 002 replied. Youyou pondered that he couldn't just sit and wait for death. It was too oppressive, as he watched others move freely while being imprisoned. I feel a bit envious of the feeling of freedom in the past. Where should I start next? Youyou is already considering how to do tasks during the 3 hours of free activity. Taking one step counts as 10 steps, and the mind of the learning god is indeed spinning very fast. Passing through the long corridor, the turning point was dazzling, and the scenery in front of me suddenly brightened up. Youyou seems to have returned to the garden scenery of his past life. In the distance, the lakes and mountains complement each other, surrounded by greenery. In the near distance, there is a long and winding wooden corridor, which is painted in a purple-red wooden style, paired with stone flower windows and carvings, giving it a unique style. When walking onto the long corridor, I occasionally saw a fish jumping out of the water. This is a spirit fish, belonging to the sect. You cannot fish it yourself. The guiding disciple saw that they were interested and briefly introduced it. Here we are, you go in. Youyou saw them walking outside a large hall. On the door plaque, there are several powerful characters written in cursive script, Tingyu Pavilion. The interior space is spacious, and a person has already sat on the stool on the top table, led by the elderly person I just saw at the door. One by one, everyone sat upright on the lower head of the futon, looking up and waiting for the person to speak. Youyou can also see tablets in the virtual world. It seems that as long as she thinks of the panel will appear. By the way, I checked the information of this elder, but the page showed 404. Youyou 002, can you explain what's going on? That's why I can't see it. Host, because this person is very powerful, your level is too low, so you don't have permission. What level? The level of cultivation feels like common sense. Indeed, it is common sense. If Youyou doesn't know, ask, if not, learn. 002 retrieved the corresponding information for her and she quickly scanned it. According to the information on the panel, the realm of cultivating immortals can be divided into refining chi, building foundations, golden pills, elemental infants, transforming gods, Mahayana, crossing tribulations, and ascending. And she hasn't refined her chi yet, so she can't see this person's information. Dear fellow Taoists, I am Wei Ming. Welcome to join the Wuji sect. The voice was long but imposing. As soon as he said a word, the disciple below felt his whole body tense. Youyou pondered that it was the same as before, probably exerting some kind of pressure. The male lead is about to appear, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Master Fang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Master Fang, over the next 3 months, our sect will focus on teaching, providing guidance for all present to enter the door of cultivation. After pausing for a moment, he continued, in 3 months, 10 disciples will be selected from you to enter the inner gate. Along the way of cultivation, one must not rashly enter. I hope that everyone will not forget their original intention of cultivation, be loyal to the sect, be down to earth, and not rush to achieve success. His majestic and low voice continued. After listening to the elder's brief opening speech, everyone watched him leave with lingering fear, their bodies tense. It seems that this realm is different. I really can't bear the pressure. I just felt like I was sweating a cold sweat. Me too. Me too. Everyone was afraid for a moment. Generally speaking, novice cultivators rarely have the opportunity to see sect elders. But Elder Wei always does everything himself, so he is not at ease and rushed to hold a welcome party for them. Elder Wei left the Tingyu Pavilion and went straight to the tea house where he received the distinguished guests. The tea tower is a building located by the lake, with a viewing platform on the roof that provides a clear view of the lake. There is a rockery on the surface of the lake, and the water flowing from the rockery gathers smoke, providing a wide view. Master Fang, I am disrespectful and have been waiting for a long time. On the rooftop, a man wearing white clothes had a broad back, his hair shining like black jade with a faint luster. He was tied high with sheepskin jade and leaned against the railing. Elder Wei immediately flew up to the observation deck, smiling and arching his hand. At this moment, the man in white stood up straight and turned around. I saw her tall and slender figure, with a smooth and fair face with a faint smile. Her eyebrows were smooth and her eyes were as bright as stars, full of vitality and elegance. Her white clothes were embroidered with faint gold threads, revealing both luxury and elegance. She was undoubtedly the person who saved Youyou's siblings on a rainy night. Brother Wei, why say this? It's an honor for Fang to have the privilege of visiting your sect. Moreover, such a beautiful scenery, no different from a fairyland, is a rare sight seen by the vast sect. The newcomer spoke in a slow tone, with a gentle voice, and his words were both appropriate and comforting, flowing into people's hearts like murmuring water. Wei Ming was very comfortable with these words, and there was no longer the constraint of just meeting. I am nearly 300 years old, and I have been practicing day and night, only then can I reach the realm of transforming into a god. But at the age of just over 100, Fang Mianzhi has already reached the early stage of Mahayana, which is terrifying. This person is a rare talent who uses thunderous means to properly govern the entire vast sect. Master Fang, last time you sent a message to our sect immediately began investigating, and the same goes for the matter. How many disciples are there? The two immediately sat at the tea table and began a secret conversation, while Youyou over there did not know her lifesaver, who was so close to her that she was still being entrusted by 002. At this moment, Tingyu Pavilion, after Elder Wei left, regained a relaxed atmosphere and Uncle Liao walked up. Elder Wei personally came to preach and dispel doubts for everyone, which is a hard-won opportunity. Elder Wei is already in the period of transforming the spirit, and he has been practicing for nearly 300 years, making him one of our predecessors. I also had the opportunity to hear Elder Wei's teachings when I first started, and I still feel that I have benefited greatly. In the next 3 months, we will unify the teaching of basic skills for everyone. Perhaps some of you here have already established a certain foundation before started practicing, some have joined our sect through casual training, and some have not entered the path of cultivation at all. Smiling as everyone continued, he said. It's okay, no matter where you come from or how advanced you are. Cultivating immortals doesn't matter your background. The moment you start is your starting point. I hope you can adhere to your Tao heart, and the sect will provide you with the greatest support. Let's talk about the sect rules below. Mr. Liao's speech was very heartwarming, comforting many people with mediocre qualifications and encouraging everyone's confidence in cultivation. Youyou's perception of this sect immediately improved. Someone really lives to be 300 years old. Youyou's worldview was once again refreshed, and she felt that the original theoretical system that supported her was collapsing. The gate rules were very long, and most people around him had already begun to lose focus. Although Youyou was entrusted, he gathered his energy and listened carefully throughout the entire process. When she studied in her previous life, it was the same. She always found classes particularly interesting, and even felt that classes were a form of rest and a process of relaxation. This is not only her interest in learning and curiosity about unknown fields, but also her eternal thirst for knowledge and curiosity about the world. When others find scientific research boring, she is full of energy and fully devoted. It seemed like she would never be tired, and it was this kind of focus that allowed her to reach heights that others could not reach at a young age. Next, let's distribute your admission gift. Liao Liwen waved his hand and each person had an extra bag on their desk. Youyou wanted to see what was inside the bag, but System 002 didn't open and stuffed it directly into his sleeve. If it weren't for spiritual power, the storage bag wouldn't be able to open now. Liao Liwen explained, seeing that many disciples also had the same idea as Youyou, pulling hard and not opening the bag. And some people have already opened the bags, but to their surprise, the small bags have a different world, even a quilt and pillow. Then there were some pills, a brand, a Tai Chi sect, a small sword, and a few stones, and so on, which Youyou couldn't see clearly. It seems that the sect is quite generous, and there are also foundation stones. Yeah, joining the sect is not for that. I am a casual cultivator. There is really no place to rely on outside, it's not like coming here. The entry requirements for Tai Chi sect are relatively low. Where is it low? Being able to reach the designated position within the specified time is either a person with good qualifications or a determined heart. There is no threshold, but the threshold is all inside. After entering the school, there is still an entrance assessment, otherwise it can only be done outside. Really, I don't know anything about it. What's the difference between the outer door and the inner door? There must be more resources in the inner gate, I'm not sure about the specifics. The previous few top-grade spiritual routes have already been selected. Yeah, even if they were placed in other sects, those people were eager to take it. Youyou perked up her ears to listen to the whispers around her. Considering that some of you have not yet opened a valley, I will take you to see your canteen houses first, Liao Liwen continued. Youyou felt in his heart that this sect really resembled modern freshmen entering school. Back then, when she was only 14 years old, her parents took her to school and helped her make a bed. I don't know how they were doing either. In the following years, she focused on her studies and research, but rarely accompanied them. Later on, it must have been a blow to them. Youyou's mood has dropped a bit again. Since the fusion of memories, her mind has actually become a bit chaotic, feeling like she needs to do something to prove her existence. But now she's under custody, like punching cotton, unable to work hard all over, she needs to find a way, she thought. Master Fang has come out, end of this chapter.